The night my boss stood in my tiny kitchen wearing my old gray hoodie and said, "Don't call me your boss tonight," I forgot how to breathe. It felt like the whole world had shrunk to the sound of the storm outside, the ticking clock on my wall, and the way she was looking at me. Not like a boss, not like the scary hit of my department, like a woman who was tired of being strong all the time. But that was later. My name is Noah. I am 26. I live in a small old apartment on the edge of town. The floor creaks when you walk. The heater makes a strange humming sound, and the windows let in more cold air than they should. My living room has a sagging sofa, a cheap TV, and a small kitchen table with one wobbly leg that I keep meaning to fix. On the wall, I have a few sketches of furniture designs pinned up, chairs, tables, shelves, little ideas I never finished. The paper is starting to curl at the corners. Dust has settled on the pins. I work as a technician for a furniture design company. I fix printers. I check blueprints for errors for the people who actually design the furniture. It is steady work. It pays my rent on time. It is not the dream I had when I was a kid. Back then, I thought I would create everything. Chairs that fit like a hug, tables that would stay in a family for years, rooms that made people feel safe the second they stepped inside. I had big dreams. Dreams die slowly when you are scared to fail. Now I come home, warm up leftovers, maybe sketch a little, and watch old movies until I fall asleep on the sofa. I do not have many friends. Not because I hate people, but because I am better at listening than talking, and most people want someone who fills the silence. I have had a couple of short relationships. Nothing deep. Nothing that lasted long enough to leave more than a small bruise on my heart. I have gotten used to being on my own. Most nights the quiet feels okay. Some nights it feels heavy. Last week was our company Christmas party. It was at a dim restaurant downtown, all dark wood and string lights. I almost did not go. Parties are not my thing. Too much noise, too many fake laughs. But if I stayed home, my coworkers would tease me again. Office hermit. Old man Noah. So I pulled on a decent sweater, brushed my hair, and went. The restaurant was packed. People laughed too loud. Glasses clinked. Someone had put on cheesy holiday music. I stayed near the wall, holding a beer and nodding when someone walked by. That is when I saw her. Julia. My boss. She is 44 and runs our department like a machine. At work, she wears sharp suits and heels that click down the hall. Her dark hair is always pulled back in a tight bun. She speaks in clear, short sentences. People sit up straighter when she walks into a room. Most people say she is cold. I never thought that. To me, she always looked more like someone holding a heavy weight and refusing to drop it. In 2 years, I have spoken to her maybe 5 times. The printer is jammed. The software updated. The blueprint is ready. She is always polite, always focused, gone before I can think of one interesting thing to say. Tonight she looked the same and not the same. She stood by the bar in a black blazer and skirt holding a glass of red wine. Her posture was still perfect, but her eyes were softer, like she was not fully on guard. She was watching the room like she was taking notes, but there was a tiredness there I had never seen at the office. At one point, I felt someone looking at me. I glanced up and caught her eyes for a second. Julia. My boss. She looked right at me, just one beat. Then she turned back to the group of senior designers around her. I told myself I imagined it. People like her do not look at people like me. The quiet guy who fixes machines and eats lunch at his desk. The night moved on. People started leaving around 11. My beer was long gone, and my social battery dead. I slipped on my jacket and headed for the door. Outside, the sky had opened. Rain fell hard, slamming into the pavement in sheets. It was the kind of rain that made you feel like someone had poured a bucket over the whole city. Under the restaurant awning, I saw her again. Julia stood there alone, her phone in her hand, screen glowing in the dark. Her brows were pulled together as she tapped at her rideshare app. Her blazer was already damp at the shoulders. I watched a drop of water slide off her hair and onto her cheek. She wiped it away fast and bit her lip like she hated that the weather was winning. I do not know what came over me. I hate conflict. I hate awkward moments. I hate putting myself out there. But something about her standing alone like that in the storm made my feet move. I stepped out from the door, my sneakers splashing in a shallow puddle. "Hey, Julia," I said, my voice rough. "You okay getting home in this?" Quote. She looked up, surprised, like she did not expect anyone to talk to her outside work. For a second, I saw it again, that crack in her calm. "No cabs," she said. Her voice was still firm, but softer than usual, and I live too far to walk. I will figure it out. I glanced at the street. No headlights, no taxis. Just rain and empty road. My apartment was 10 minutes away. Her place was up in the hills, at least 40 minutes on a clear night. In this storm, it could be worse. "My place is close," I heard myself say. "If you want, you could wait there until the rain slows. No pressure, just until it is safe to drive." Her eyes locked on mine. That look she has at work, the one that makes people sit up straighter, was there. It felt like she was reading every thought I had. For a moment, I was sure she would say no. That she would give a tight smile, thank me, and stand there alone until a cab finally showed. Then she gave one small nod. "Just until it clears," she said. "I will be gone when it does." The drive to my place was quiet. The wipers fought the rain in a steady back and forth. Streetlights blurred on the wet glass. Julia sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, her blazer damp at the edges. I kept my eyes on the road. My heart beat faster than it should have. I tried to tell myself this was nothing. I was just helping my boss get out of the rain. That was all. We reached my building, a tired brick place with a flickering hallway light. I led her up the narrow stairs, my keys cold in my hand. When I opened my door and she stepped inside, my apartment felt smaller than ever. One old bulb in the ceiling lit the room. The sofa looked more tired, the table more crooked. My sketches on the wall suddenly felt childish. "Sorry," I said, kicking off my wet shoes. "It is not much." She looked around slowly. Her eyes moved over the sofa, the table, the sketches. She did not look disgusted. She did not look amused. She looked like she was really seeing it. "It is yours," she said. That is more than most people can say. My chest tightened at that. I grabbed a clean towel from the bathroom and an old gray hoodie from my closet. I held it out to her, feeling awkward. "It is probably too big," I said, "but it is dry." She took it without a word. Right there in my living room, she slipped off her wet blazer and pulled the hoodie over her head. It swallowed her, the sleeves hanging past her hands. Seeing my boss like that, in my clothes, standing in my space, did something strange to me. She looked less like the woman who signed my reports and more like someone who could sit on my couch and watch a movie. I went to the kitchen and found a half bottle of red wine in the cabinet. "Want some?" I asked. She nodded, and I poured it into two mismatched glasses. We sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the wine glasses between us on the old coffee table. Outside, the storm raged against the windows. Inside, a different kind of storm was slowly starting. She glanced at me, then at the sketches on the wall. "You live alone here," she said, her voice soft. "Yeah," I replied. "Just me." She nodded. "I live alone, too," she said after a pause. "But my place is bigger, a lot bigger. Sometimes it feels like I am living inside an echo." Her eyes stayed on the sketches when she said it. I did not know what to say, so I said nothing. I just sat there, holding my glass, my heart pounding, while my boss, wrapped in my hoodie, sat in my creaky apartment during a storm and let a piece of her guard slip. Then she turned her head and looked at me in a way she never had at work. "You do not talk much, do you, Noah?" she asked. A small laugh escaped me. "Guess not." "That is okay," she said. "Quiet is honest." And with those three simple words, something inside me shifted, and I knew this night was not going to be something I could forget. The wine made a thin red line in my glass when I tilted it. I watched it for a second, just so I would not have to watch her. Julia sat at the other end of the sofa, my hoodie bunched around her, bare feet tucked under her. The room felt different with her in it, like every piece of old furniture was trying to stand up straighter. The storm outside had settled into a steady beat. Rain against the windows, wind pushing at the building. Inside, the silence between us was not empty anymore. It felt full, like it was waiting for something. She was the one who broke it. "Do you ever feel like you are just going through the motions?" she asked. Her voice was low, almost lost under the hum of the heater. Her eyes were on the sketches pinned to my wall. Old drawings of chairs, tables, shelves. Lines from a life I never really started. I followed her gaze and gave a small breath of a laugh. "Yeah," I said, "most days." I leaned back into the sofa, the springs groaning under my weight. I wake up, fix things, check other people's work, go home, heat something up, watch a movie, sleep, then do it again. It is like I am waiting for something to happen, but I do not know what. She nodded slowly, like she had heard the same thought in her own head. "I used to play piano," she said, "just like that. I started when I was a kid. I was good, not a genius, but good enough that people listened." I turned my head to look at her. I tried to picture Julia, my strict boss, sitting at a piano, fingers moving over the keys. It did not fit at first. Then it did, in a strange way. The focus. The control. The way she never missed details. "I stopped when I turned 30, she went on. "Life got busy. Work, deadlines, meetings, then marriage, then more work. After he was gone, I tried to sit at the piano again." She took a slow sip of wine. Her fingers traced the rim of the glass. "The keys felt too heavy," she said, "like they were judging me for leaving them." I knew who she meant by he. I had heard the office whispers. "Husband, car accident. 3 years ago. No kids. Big house up in the hills. A woman who came back to work with sharper edges and a tighter bun." "Why did you not try again?" I asked, my voice gentle. "After a while." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were sharp, but they did not feel cold. "Same reason you do not draw anymore, I would guess," she said. "It is easier to stay where it is safe." The words hit me like a hand on my chest. I swallowed and looked away, back at my sketches on the wall. "I wanted to be a designer," I said, the truth sliding out before I could stop it. "Not just the guy who fixes printers and checks measurements. I wanted to make things people would keep, things that would matter." I let out a slow breath. Every time I tried to really start, I froze. What if I am not good enough? What if I fail? So I stopped trying, and now I am here. My voice cracked at the end. My face felt hot. I hated that. Hated that I was showing this side of myself to my boss of all people. But Julia did not laugh. She did not roll her eyes or give some tough love speech. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, the big hoodie sliding off one shoulder. I saw the line of her collarbone, pale in the dim light. "You do not fail by trying," she said quietly. "You fail by stopping." She looked down at her glass for a second. I stopped. Now I am the woman who runs a department, signs papers, goes home to a house that is too quiet, and pretends that is enough. Her voice shook just a little on the last word. I watched her. Not as my boss, not as some distant figure I saw across the office, just as a person who was tired and honest and sitting in my old hoodie on my tired sofa. I did not try to cheer her up. I just picked up the wine bottle and poured more into her glass, then mine. The small sound of the liquid hitting the glass filled the space between us. She started talking again. Not like a manager, like someone who was remembering who she used to be. She told me about weekends hiking with her husband in the mountains, early mornings with cold air and hot coffee in metal cups, evenings falling asleep on the couch to old movies, nights playing Chopin at the piano while he lay on the floor listening with his eyes closed. I told her about the first bookshelf I ever built for my mom. How it leaned to one side and wobbled, but she put all her favorite books on it anyway. How I used to draw furniture ideas on napkins in diners. We laughed sometimes. Quiet, small laughs. Careful laughs, like we both knew the room was fragile. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, then one. At some point, the gap between us on the sofa got smaller. I could smell her perfume now, softer after the rain, mixed with the faint scent of my laundry soap on the hoodie. My heart beat faster every time our knees almost touched. I wanted to ask her why she was still here. The rain was still heavy, but the roads were not blocked. She could have called another car. She could have left hours ago. I did not ask. I was afraid if I did, the spell would break and she would stand up and go. Instead, she stood up for a different reason. She walked over to the small counter by the kitchen, where I kept a folded blanket. I thought she was getting ready to sleep on the sofa. I started to stand, ready to offer her my bed and take the couch myself. As I reached for the blanket, her fingers brushed my wrist. It was not an accident. Her touch was light, but sure. Enough to stop me in my tracks. I looked at her hand on my skin, then at her face. Her eyes were steady. There was no command in them, no office power. Just something raw and open that made my chest tight. "Noah," she said, my name soft on her tongue. I did not stay because of the rain. My pulse jumped. "Then why?" I asked. My voice sounded too small in my own ears. She held my gaze. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "I stayed because I wanted to know what it feels like to be invited somewhere," she said. "To be wanted, even just for a night." Her words hit me harder than any storm outside. This was my boss. The woman everyone said was unshakable. And she was telling me she stayed because she wanted to feel wanted. My mind scrambled. It threw up warnings, rules, lines, age, work, all the reasons this was dangerous. But my heart heard only the truth in her voice. "You are here," I said quietly. My hand stayed where it was under her fingers. "That is enough." Her lips parted like she might say something else. Then she closed them and just looked at me for a long, long second. No kiss, no dramatic move. Just that look, that touch, that shared secret hanging between us, bigger than the room, louder than the rain. We went back to the sofa. This time we sat closer, our shoulders almost touching. We talked more, but softer now. About the night she could not sleep and walked her house at 3 in the morning. About the nights I stayed up sketching and tore the pages up before the sun came up. At some point, while I was telling her about a chair design I never finished, I felt a slow weight rest against my arm. Julia had leaned into me, her head settling on my shoulder. Her breathing evened out, her body relaxed against mine. She was asleep. I did not move. I was afraid if I did, it would all vanish. The storm, the honesty, the strange warmth in my chest. So I sat there, still and quiet, her head on my shoulder, the sound of the rain fading to a soft murmur. I did not know if this was a mistake or a beginning, or something that would disappear with the storm. All I knew was that, for the first time in a very long time, my apartment did not feel empty. I must have fallen asleep sometime after 3. The last thing I remember is the weight of her head on my shoulder, the sound of the rain softening outside, and my own thoughts running in circles until they finally burned out. When I opened my eyes, the room was gray with early morning light. My neck hurt, my arm was stiff, my back felt like I had slept on rocks. For a second, I did not know why I was on the sofa instead of my bed. Then I felt it, a warmth against my side. A soft, slow breath near my shoulder. Julia. She was still there, curled into the corner of the sofa, my hoodie wrapped around her like a blanket, her cheek resting against my upper arm. Her hair had come loose in the night and fell in soft waves around her face. She looked different in the morning light, softer, younger. Not like the sharp boss who walked through the office in heels and pressed suits. More like someone who could live in a place like mine and drink cheap coffee from chipped mugs. I lay still, afraid that if I moved, she would wake up and the spell would break. I watched her for a moment, the little lines at the corners of her eyes. The way her lips parted just slightly when she breathed. Something in my chest tightened. It was not just attraction, it was something heavier. A strange mix of protectiveness and fear and longing that I did not know where to put. I shifted a little, and the sofa creaked under us. Her eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking as if pulling herself up from deep water. For a second, she looked confused. Then she seemed to remember where she was, who I was, and how close we were sitting. "Morning," she said. Her voice was rough with sleep, softer than I had ever heard it. "Hey," I answered. "Did you, sleep okay?" She sat up, rubbing a hand over her face. The hoodie slipped a little, showing the line of her throat, then fell back into place. "Better than I have in years," she said. There was a small smile on her lips, but her eyes were serious. That is the strange part. I did not know how to respond to that, so I laughed once, too quickly. "I will make coffee," I said, standing up a little too fast. My leg had fallen asleep. Pins and needles shot through my foot. I winced and almost tripped over the edge of the rug. Julia smiled for real that time, a quick flash that felt warm and private. In the kitchen, I filled the old kettle and set it on the stove. My hands shook a little as I reached for the mugs. I could feel her in the room even when I was not looking at her, like her presence had soaked into the air. She walked in and leaned against the counter across from me, bare feet on the cold tile, hoodie hanging loose. She folded her arms, watching me. "Noah," she said. The way she said my name made me stop. "Yeah?" "I meant what I said last night," she said, "about not staying because of the rain." I turned to face her fully. The kettle hissed softly in the background. "Then why did you stay?" I asked. My voice came out quieter than I planned. "Really?" She took a breath and let it out slowly. "Because for the first time in 3 years," she said, "I did not feel like I was carrying everything by myself." Her eyes met mine and held. "At work, I am the one who does not crack," she went on. "The one people bring problems to. The one who keeps things running so other people can create. At home, I am the widow who is doing fine, the one people check on less and less because they think I am strong." She looked down at her hands. "Last night, sitting in your worn-out hoodie, in your small apartment with your crooked table and your crooked sketches, I did not have to be that woman. I could just be a person who was tired and lonely and wanted company." Quote. Her voice softened on the last word. My throat felt tight. "I am nobody special," I said. "I fix machines. I hide in the corner at parties. You are my boss. You run everything. This does not make sense." She gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe it does not have to make sense," she said. "Maybe it just has to be honest." The kettle clicked. I turned away to pour the hot water over the coffee grounds, more to give my hands something to do than because I cared how it tasted. "How are we supposed to go back to normal after this?" I asked, staring at the dark liquid rising in the filter. "Back to, 'Good morning, Ms. Gray, the printer is fixed.'" Quote. I heard her move closer. When I turned, she was standing just a step away. Not so close that we were touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth from her body. "We do not pretend it never happened," she said. "But we also do not let it ruin everything." Her eyes held a mix of warning and something hopeful. "How do we do that?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. Then her mouth curved into a small, almost sad smile. "By deciding what this night is and what it is not," she said. She reached out and, very gently, took the edge of my t-shirt between her fingers, like she needed to hold on to something to steady herself. "I am not asking you for a secret relationship," she said. "I am not asking you to save me or fix me. I just wanted one night where I did not have to be the one in control." Her eyes searched mine, looking for something I was not sure I had. "I do not want you to be scared of me," she added quietly. "Not here, not tonight." My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. All the rules I knew were still there in my mind, but they felt far away, like something happening to someone else. "What am I supposed to call you then?" I asked. My voice was almost a whisper now. "If you are not my boss here." That was when she said it. She stepped that last little bit closer, so close that I could see the faint smudge of last night's eyeliner at the corner of her eye, so close that her fingers dropped from my shirt and brushed my wrist instead. "Do not call me your boss tonight," she said. Her voice was soft, but there was a strong thread under it. "Not here." The words hit me harder than a shout would have. "Then what do I call you?" I asked. She gave the smallest smile I had ever seen. It made her look almost shy. "You can just call me Julia," she said. The way she said it turned my name for her into something new. Not Ms. Gray, not my boss, just Julia. A woman in my kitchen in my hoodie, with rain still on her mind and 3 years of held-back feelings in her chest. The air between us felt thick and bright. I could feel every inch of space like it was alive. My hand tingled where her fingers had brushed it. I knew this was a line. Maybe not one we had fully crossed yet, but one we were standing right on. One step, and everything would change. My mind screamed all the reasons to pull back. Age, work, power, gossip. But my heart heard only her voice from the night before. Quiet is honest. You do not fail by trying. I did not stay because of the rain. She stood there waiting. Not pushing, not begging. Just there. "Okay," I said finally, my voice unsteady. "Julia." Her eyes closed for a second like she had been holding her breath and could finally let it go. When she opened them again, they were bright and wet, but she was smiling. We stood there in my small kitchen. Storm clouds fading outside, coffee cooling on the counter, her name hanging between us like a promise and a risk. I did not know what I was going to do next. I only knew one thing. Whatever happened after this moment, there was no way my life was going back to what it was before. For a moment after I say her name, we just stand there in the kitchen and breathe. Julia. It feels strange and right in my mouth at the same time. At work, she is Ms. Gray. Here she is, just a woman, in my old hoodie, with sleep in her eyes and her heart in her hands. She lets go of my shirt and steps back half an inch, like she is giving me space to change my mind. I do not move. "Coffee is going to get cold," I say, because I do not know what else to say. We sit at my small, crooked table. Our knees almost touch under the wood. The mugs warm our hands. The rain outside has softened to a light tap, the last of the storm giving up. For a few minutes we drink in silence. It is not empty. It is thick. My mind keeps flashing images from last night. Her laugh, her head on my shoulder, her fingers on my wrist, her voice saying she did not stay because of the rain. I keep thinking I should apologize, she says at last. She is staring at her coffee, not me, for crossing lines, for coming here. She lifts her eyes, but I do not feel sorry. That is the problem. My chest pulls tight. I do not feel sorry either, I say. Confused, yeah, scared, a little, but not sorry. Her shoulders loosen just a little. "Good," she says. "I do not want to be some shame you carry around." "You could never be that," I answer, and I mean it more than I know how to explain. She smiles, small and real. "We need to be clear, though," she adds after a second, "about what this is. I do not want to hurt you. I do not want to blow up your life or mine because we were both lonely in a storm." The word lonely hits hard. I do not even know what this is, I admit. I just know last night felt real, more real than most things in my life lately. She nods like that answer makes sense. "I am not ready for some big romance," she says, and the honesty stings even while it calms me. I am still trying to remember who I am without him, without the job. Without the grief, I am not asking you to be my next chapter. She reaches across the table and lays her hand over mine. Her fingers are warm. Her touch is careful, like she is afraid I will pull away. "But I am also not going to pretend this did not matter," she finishes. "You mattered last night, Noah." My mouth goes dry. I squeeze her hand back just once. "You did too," I say. "More than you know." We sit like that for a moment, her hand on mine. Two people who should not be here like this, and yet are. "What about work?" I ask quietly. "What happens when I see you in the office on Monday and someone brings you a stack of forms and I am standing there with a toolbox?" "Then I am your boss again," she says simply. You say, "Good morning, Ms. Gray," and I ask if the printers survive the weekend. You do your job, I do mine. We do not give anyone a reason to talk. Her eyes hold mine, so I know she is serious. And outside of work? I ask. She hesitates. For a moment, she looks younger, unsure. Outside of work, she says slowly, we see what feels right. We do not rush to label it. We do not make promises we cannot keep. We just remember that we are people who shared something important. And if either of us needs to talk again, we know who we can call. The idea that I could be that person for her makes my heart beat hard in my chest. I do not have your number, I say. She smiles. You will, she answers. But not written on a napkin like some bad movie. She stands then, pushing her chair back with a soft scrape. The hoodie hangs off one shoulder again. She does not fix it. I should go, she says. If I stay longer, I will talk myself into staying all day, and then we really will have a problem. I get up too and follow her to the door. She bends to pull on her shoes, then straightens and picks up her bag. The storm has faded to a gray, quiet morning. Light seeps through the thin curtains and turns the room soft. At the door she stops and turns back to me. For a second she does not look like my boss at all. She looks like the woman who fell asleep on my shoulder and told me the piano keys felt too heavy. Noah, she says. Yeah? Her eyes search my face like she is trying to remember every part of it. If anyone asks, last night was not just about the rain, she says. The words hit me with a slow, deep force. They will not ask. I say, my voice low. I will not tell. I know, she replies. That is not what I meant. She reaches up and very gently touches my jaw with her fingertips. It is not a kiss. It is not nothing either. It feels like a promise that does not need details yet. Last night was about you and me being honest for once, she says. Do not forget that, even if we have to pretend for everyone else. I swallow hard and nod. I will not forget. She lets her hand fall away. For a second, I think she might lean in. Maybe I will. Maybe we both will. The moment stretches thin, bright, dangerous. Then she steps back instead, fingers closing around the doorknob. Goodbye, Noah, she says. Goodbye, Julia, I answer. She opens the door and steps into the hallway. The door closes with a soft click. The silence that follows is loud. I stand there for a full minute, staring at the door like I can still see her through it. Part of me wants to run after her, to ask her to stay, to say I am not afraid of what this could be. Another part knows this night, this morning, has to sit still for a while before I decide anything. I walk back into the living room. The sofa is a mess of rumpled blanket and bent cushions. My hoodie still holds the faint shape of her. The wine glasses are on the table, a thin ring of red at the bottom of one. On the wall, my sketches hang crooked. Old lines, old ideas, old fear. I go to them. My hand hovers over the thumbtacks. I pull one drawing down, then another. I carry them to the table and smooth them out with flat palms. They are not perfect. Some of the lines are shaky. The ideas are half-formed. But for the first time, in a long time, they do not look stupid to me. They look like a start. Her words echo in my head. You do not fail by trying. You fail by stopping. Quiet is honest. I did not stay because of the rain. Do not call me your boss tonight. I grab a pencil from the counter and sit at the table. The wood wobbles under my elbow, but I steady it with my knee and start to draw. At first, my hand hesitates, but then the lines come faster. A new chair, a new table, something different from before. I do not know if anyone will ever see this. I do not know if I will ever show it to her, to Julia, in that bright office where she goes back to being Ms. Gray. What I do know is that I am done moving through my days half asleep. The storm, her knock, her voice in my kitchen, the night on the sofa, the morning coffee, the way she asked me not to call her my boss, all of it has shaken something loose inside me. That night kept me awake in all the wrong ways. Her words keep me awake now in all the right ones. I bend over the paper and keep drawing while the light grows stronger through the window, knowing that whatever happens next, I will never be just the guy who fixes printers again.